Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Uncapped Podcast. I'm your host, Chris Sands, and today I'm joined by George Humbert, the founder. Do you throw any other titles in there too?
No, not really. Whatever you
Of of Pub Dog Brewing Company, who is, you're one of the originals in Maryland. I can't remember who I was talking to the other day, but like we were trying to figure out like how many waves of craft beer there have been in Maryland. And I think we're at like maybe the third or fourth wave now. I think I would definitely include Pub Dog in that first wave. Would you agree with that?
Yeah. Hey, Chris, thanks for having me today. And
You're welcome.
yeah, I've been in brewing in Maryland since about 1995. So
Yeah, that makes you an original.
more like a relic, but
Yeah.
yeah, so Pub Dog's been around since 2001. In fact, we'll hit our 20th anniversary this year at the end of the year. So it's
So you were solidly in wave one.
okay. I'll go with that.
So were you brewing professionally before you opened Pub Dog?
Yes.
Where at?
So I started at it was the first brew pub in Montgomery County. It was called Old Town Tavern and Brewing Company, and it's gone through several changes since I left. But I was there from about 95 to about 1999, and that was my first professional brewing gig.
That's what became growlers, right?
Yes.
And then green growlers or whatever they called themselves for a little while. And it
was Summit Station also, I believe, before that. And then
yes.
Yes. So I know a number of Maryland brewers have come through. I was
gonna say there are a ton of Maryland brewers that went through that building at some point in their careers.
Yes.
It has been quite a training ground for a lot of Maryland's breweries.
Yeah, it was a great place to start. It was, really at just sort of the start of the craft beer movement, I think. And, we opened up and it just took off. And, I kind of happened to be in the right place at the right time. And I got my start work. Basically, I started off there as a bartender. And it was actually where I met my business partner. He was also working there as a manager. And then I sort of got my foot into the brew house after the assistant brewer left to go to brewing school. And I'd just been really home brewing up until that point. And that's how I got my start. My first boss was Joe Kalish. He was an ex-Anheuser-Busch brewmaster. So he was a great mentor.
I was going to say, like, people crap on Budweiser and Anheuser-Busch a lot, but the people who brew there know how to brew beer.
Absolutely. There's no question that their brewing techniques are, arguably some of the best in the industry. So that was something in my brewing, training that I really learned was, consistency, quality, and repeatability. And you also have the creativity side, and we were brewing IPAs back in the mid '90s, which were relatively new in this country. And but what I really learned under Joe was just sort of more the technical side of brewing, which is important. It's really it's something that most breweries that have survived for a long time have that technical skill and have the ability to produce a batch of beer very consistently time after time.
Yeah, if you're not able to do that, you're not going to last a long time. If you're not making good beer consistently, then people are going to stop coming at some point.
Yeah, so there's a good story, in the industry. Somebody once talked about the difference between, the the futures of Sierra Nevada Brewing and New Albion Brewing. They both sort of started in California at the same time, and Sierra Nevada went on to become one of the biggest, craft brewers in the country and the world, and New Albion didn't make it. And, I'm not sure what you can say about, I wasn't around at that time, but, Sierra Nevada really focused on quality and consistency of their product. And, they've been around 35 years now, I think. So
yeah, they were the ones to survive.
Yep. So
how did you get into home brewing? Because that wasn't like now, like someone says they're into home brewing, it's just like saying I like to draw, or I'm into any other, like it's just a not an uncommon hobby. But I feel like in the 90s it had to have been fairly uncommon, right?
It really was. One of my good friends that I've been friends with since grade school, Robert Butts, I called him up one day and just was like, "Hey, what are you doing today? You want to hang out?" And he said, "Well, I'm making a batch of beer in my kitchen." And I kind of paused for a second. I was like, "Really?" I said,
how do you do that?
Yeah, I'm coming over. I got to see this. So I went over and we, brewed a batch of beer and made a mess. And I don't know, 3 or 4 weeks later, we tried it and it wasn't that great, but I was just fascinated with the process and just, I said, "Hey, can we do another batch next weekend or next month?" And he was like, "Sure." I think this was 1991, 92. I mean, this was still like, you couldn't, the ingredients weren't that readily available. And you just, there were a couple stores, I think, in the area. There was one in Rockville called Brewmasters. And, but we were really intrigued by it. And I had sort of learned, about craft beer. I went to school in Boston, and Sam Adams and Harpoon were just sort of launching and making a presence in Boston. And I think evolved from, the beer that I drank in college, which was really just cheap and plentiful. And, I was just fascinated by the process. So
I drank Rolling Rock in college.
Yeah, mine was, I didn't even get that high up the food chain.
Well, I purposely hung out with the wrestling team. I went to the University of Pittsburgh at Johnstown for my freshman year, and the wrestling team always had Rolling Rock at their parties. So and one of my friends was a wrestler, so that we always hung out there because they had the good beer.
Yeah, that was good beer. So.
Yeah, I mean, that was when they were still independent. They were brewed. I don't know how far Latrobe is from Johnstown, but it's pretty close. So it was the local good beer.
Yeah. So, but yeah, so that's how I just got started. I mean, it really was just a random, it just happened to be, have the right friend and is doing something at the time,
Yeah.
So,
what did you go to school for?
I actually went to school and studied liberal arts economics.
Okay. Well, that probably helped a little bit with starting your own business then, I guess. In
Absolutely,
some ways, economics would.
And I'd worked in the restaurant business also too, sort of as a teenager and then in college. And so that was also something that I really enjoyed. And I learned to cook at a relatively young age. So when I got to making beer, I understood the basics of the process. So. And then, I bought every book, homebrewing book I could find, which weren't that many at the time. Yeah. And, just sort of, we brewed a batch of beer maybe twice a month and just started learning, more different styles. I think about that same time period, the Brick Scaler was having these beer tastings by Bob Tupper. He was doing about once a month. They would do beer tastings and bring in brewers and breweries from around the country, and so you could go and try, different beers from different parts of the country. Because again, back then selections weren't nearly what they are today.
Yeah. Well, I
Today,
mean, even you roll back 10 years, they weren't even what they are today. So
right.
like,
So
you roll back, what? Oh my God, that's like
25
30.
years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Man, I'm so old.
30 years. Yeah, I know. It was definitely different back then. So you saw something like Foster's or something like
Yeah.
that, and you were like, oh wow, that's
That's
important.
the good stuff.
Right. So
then what was your road from home brewing to getting that first job at Old Town, or was it Old Town Tavern? Was that the right name?
Old Town Tavern and Brewing Company. Yeah. So my same friend Robert Butts, he actually sort of got involved with that brew pub.
He's been a bad influence to you forever, huh?
So that's how I kind of got my foot in the door. I came up one day. They were renovating the building there in Old Town Gaithersburg, and I kind of went up one day, and with him, he was there, and they were building it out, and met the brewmaster, and told him, I said, "Hey, I've been home brewing," and he kind of looked at me and was like, "Okay, yeah, that's great. Here's a paintbrush. Why don't you help me over here?" But I was persistent, and I just said, "All right, well, I'd like to work here, even if there's no position, in the brewery." But he said, "All right, well, we can probably get you a couple bartending shifts here," and that's how I kind of got my foot in the door. And then I think 3 or 4 months after they opened, the assistant brewer ended up going to Siebel Institute in Chicago, and that's when I just said, "Hey, I really want to try this." And he said, "All right, I'll give you a month." And it ended up being 4 years. I think roughly 4 years that I was there. Yeah.
So I would have the first time I went there, which I think was still Old Town at that point, was 2001. I'm not sure what the name of it was. I had just moved to Maryland, and I didn't have cell service there, and there was not huge, but there was enough of a snowstorm that there was like a 20 some car pileup on the Beltway. And my parents had no concept of like where I lived and where DC was. And so I was in Germantown, safely far from there, would not have been driving on the Beltway for any reason, but they couldn't get a hold of me. So they were convinced that I had been in that pileup because I was at either the Summit Station or Old Town Tavern. I can't remember which name it was at that point. So that's my main memory of there.
How long were you stuck there for? Not that that's a bad.
Well, I mean, I wasn't stuck.
Oh,
It was like I said, it was like there was some snow. It wasn't bad. I don't know what caused the wreck on the Beltway, and I lived in Germantown, so it was
okay,
like,
I got you.
Yeah. So it was a short. There was really no reason at all for them to jump from. I can't get a hold of Chris, so he must be dead in that in that 20 some car pileup. But that's my main memory of that place. So what actually, let's take a real quick sponsor break, and then when we get back, let's talk about that transition from going from Old Town Tavern to starting Pub Dog.
Sounds great.
We'll be right back.
If you haven't heard about our beer dinners, well, now you have. Typically, the last Tuesday of each month, we partner with a local brewery and craft an exclusive 5-course dinner. Each course is thoughtfully paired with some of the finest craft beer available. You'll meet the brewery, enjoy memorable pairings and service, and have a damn good time. Like us on Facebook to stay in the know when tickets become available, because they will sell out quick.
Idiom Brewing Company proudly offers a delicious variety of beers to satisfy the most discerning tastes. Best known for their wide array of IPAs, delicious fruited sours, and robust porters and stouts, Idiom prides themselves on continuing to innovate, utilizing new and experimental hops, local ingredients, and unique flavor profiles. Idiom has a simple goal in mind: to bring people from all walks of life together to enjoy themselves and each other. Idiom Brewing Company is located in downtown Frederick, just south of the intersection of East Street and East Patrick Street, with ample seating and directly on Carroll Creek. All right, so you spent roughly 4 years there, and you said you had met your business partner while working there. What was the process of how you decided, like, I'm done doing this for someone else, I'm open to my own place? Because it was still also, I mean, a risky venture at that time.
Yeah, so we both, I think, ended up leaving about the same time. We had really formed this bond that we loved the brew pub concept, and we figured, hey, we want to start something, on our own. We want to open our own place. And so we probably spent about a year just coming up with a plan and then trying to, figure out how we were going to do it. And we're trying to save up some money and figure out how we're going to do this. And we sort of wanted to do it on our own without investors and getting too complicated. So in about early 2000, we sort of had eliminated the DC area. It was just a little bit more, expensive. And we focused on looking around the Baltimore area. So I get a call one day from my business partner. He says, come up to Baltimore. I think I found a place. And so I drove up, and right on Cross Street, we found a place that was, it was the bar had been out of, I think it had been closed for a few months. And we ended up walking up the street to a realtor's office, walking in and seeing if they knew anything about that establishment. She said, well, I don't know, but let me make a phone call. And 24 hours later, we basically had, agreed to purchase this place in Baltimore. I mean, it happened that quickly. And then we spent about 4 months. Then we realized right off the bat, like, this building really we can't put a brewery in this building. It's a Baltimore row house, just didn't have the space. But we figured, hey, maybe we can go to a local brewery and see if they'll make some beers for us. And so we reached out to Old Dominion, which I knew a couple of people that worked at there, and they said, sure. And they basically provided beer to us sort of under, basically a house brand for us. And they made 1 or 2 beers specifically for us, but we were buying other Dominion beers and just sort of branding them our own. And we opened in December 2001. And again, it was a little bit slow. We were trying to do something that we were 3 or 4 doors down from Sisson's Brew Pub, which was still operating. And I think there were maybe a handful of brew pubs operating in Baltimore at the time.
And had he started Clipper City at that point? Yeah, Clipper City was open then, right?
Clipper City was in operation. I think Clipper City started maybe 3 or 4 years before that.
Yeah, they just had their 25th anniversary.
Yeah, so that makes sense. So about 97, I think, is about when, or 96 when Heavy Seas Clipper City opened. So there was a craft beer foundation in Baltimore. I used to drive up from, I lived just outside of DC, and I would drive up to Baltimore Brewing Company. I would drive up to Sisson's back in the 90s, and they were really an inspiration for me. The old Oxford Brewing Company, and those were all great breweries. Wharf Rat, Oliver's, and Brewer's Art. So I had already, in fact, the brew pub scene in Baltimore was I thought much more developed than in DC at the time. So, but we opened in 2001, and it was a very simple pizza and beer sort of pub with craft beer. Basically, we didn't really call it craft beer. We just had a dozen or so beers on tap, and we may have had some other beers originally, I think, but Baltimore is a pretty big Miller Lite town, so we probably opened with Miller Lite.
And Natty
But-
Bo? Do you have a
Natty
Natty
Bo.
Bo?
Yep. And so we opened, and then it just, slowly built from there. I think my business partner and I mean, we didn't take a vacation for the first year and a half. I mean, we worked it every single day. I think we had taken out over a dozen credit cards to open it up. And so we basically just said, we're gonna pay everything off for the first year and a half until we get this thing off the ground. And and then so we did that for about 4 years, and we were buying beer from Old Dominion and then also Clintok Brewing Company, which had opened in, I believe, also around the same time, 2001 in Westminster. We'd bought a couple beers from them, and the owner, Greg Norris, called us one day and said, "Hey, I'm going to be down in Federal Hill next week. You guys want to meet for lunch?" And we said, "Sure." So we met him for lunch, and we were asking him about his summer beer or winter beer or something we could take. And he basically said, "How'd you guys like to buy a brewery?" And right off the bat, my business partner said, "No." And I said, "Well, hold on a second. Let's hear the man out." And so he said, "Here's where I am. I've operated it for 4 years, and it's a small little brewery, and I've got some things, needs to grow a little bit. It needs some more investment and capital to expand production." But he said, "If you guys want to come up and take a look at the facility, come on up and take a look." And we did, and it was a small little brewery in Westminster, Maryland. Which is basically in between Baltimore and Frederick, just a little bit further north. And we came up, and we took a look around at the brewery, and Greg showed us around. And I turned to my business partner and I said, "You know what? We might be able to make this work." And at the time, my wife and I, we had just had, I think, our third. We just had twins, so children 2 and 3 came at once. And I kind of looked at my business partner and said, "You know what? It wouldn't be a bad thing if I stopped working till 3 o'clock in the morning most nights." And so we said, "All right, well, let's figure out we can make this work." And that was, again, basically just happened all within, a very short period of time. Yeah. We ended up acquiring the Clintok Brewing Company, just the facility up here in Westminster.
And that's where you're currently there now?
And that's where we're currently are.
Okay.
We've been here since officially we took it over in 2006. So we've been here 15 years now.
So then when did you open the Columbia location?
So that opened in, I believe, about 2007.
Okay.
So about a year, maybe a year and a half after we took over the brewery. So what we kind of realized when it was just a brewery, there was no tap room, there was no, it wasn't open to the public. In fact, very few people knew there was a brewery in Westminster. We sort of realized that we just didn't have enough production just with the Federal Hill Pub to support the brewery. So my business partner said, "Okay, well, we'll open another pub," and that happened in Columbia.
And that one is, actually recently reopened, correct?
Just reopened, last month after a year and a half hiatus.
I don't remember. That was like one of the adjacent businesses. There was an explosion, or was it just a fire? I can't remember what happened there.
Yeah, so there was a gas line ruptured underground.
That's what. Okay.
Under the rear parking lot in the shopping center, and so that was an interesting 24 hours for me. I got the night before we took second place in the Maryland beer competition, and that happened. So we took second place, best overall, best of show. And then 12 hours later, I get a phone call. There's been an explosion in Columbia. So just a dizzying high down to this crushing low in the span of about 12 hours was, a pretty crazy day. So, but it was closed for a year and a half. It closed in, I the whole shopping center basically. Thankfully, no one was injured. It happened, I think, at 7 a.m. on a Sunday morning. So there were no tenants really in. No people were, no one was hurt, thankfully. And but they ended up rebuilding one whole section of the shopping center, and it took 1.5 years roughly. So now the bulk of that was spent during COVID. So the last 12 months. So at some point, there wasn't a real rush to reopen.
Yeah. You weren't standing there like tapping your watch, telling them to hurry up.
Right. Yeah. So, that timing somewhat worked out, but again, it was a pretty big, it was a pretty big loss.
So there wasn't any like damage to the inside of the pub, or it was all externally for the shopping center.
Correct. Yeah, there was no damage inside.
So what brought you to the name Pub Dog?
So when we actually first opened in Baltimore, we were called the Thirsty Dog, and we always wanted to do something dog themed, and that's my business partner and I are both dog enthusiasts, so we just wanted to do something dog related. And I'd been to when I went to school in Boston, I would see Black Dog Pub T-shirts all over the city, and I think it's just something we associated with, and it's something we wanted to continue and to enjoy, and that type of just simple kind of a pub, and we like dogs, so we just
just went together.
That simple. So,
what kind of dog do you have?
I have had mostly golden retrievers, and actually right now we have cats. So my wife prefers cats. So
mine does too. Thankfully, I'm allergic, so I have been cat free, and we only have a dog.
Yeah, good. What kind of dog?
Cocker Spaniel.
Nice.
Prior to her, we had a pug, who are amazing dogs, but I would not recommend to anyone get one. They're fully defective. Their years of breeding them to be basically unable to live on their own.
Oh, wow.
Make them very vet intensive animals to have.
Wow. Wow.
So, and they live a really long, well, not a really long, he was about 15 years old when he died. And he was the best dog ever, but there were a lot of dental surgeries, and just pugs have a lot of genetic baggage. But still a great dog. I just recommend a different breed or a mutt.
Nice.
All right, so let's take one more quick sponsor break, and when we come back, I have a couple of listener submitted questions for you.
Cool.
So we will be right back. There are many reasons why I've chosen District East for where I purchase beer. I love the flexibility of being able to make a custom 6-pack or take home a crowler from one of the 8 beers on tap. Their friendly and knowledgeable staff do an amazing job at keeping a diverse selection on hand. You can even purchase artwork from the monthly featured artist. District East is located on Northeast Street in Frederick, in the same shopping center as Family Mill and Rockwell Brewery. You can find today's beer lists on the District East Facebook page or at www.districteast.beer. To all you craft breweries, wineries, and distilleries out there, listen up. Atlantic Custom Solutions is the real deal in providing you branded growlers, ceramics, glassware, and accessories like koozies, coasters, and keychains. Their high-definition digital printing, organic ink, and low-fire process ensures your brand is printed in ultra-high definition, giving you a one-up on the competition. We've used Atlantic Custom Solutions for uncapped branded glassware and couldn't be happier with it. Check them out. Visit www.brandmybeverage.com or give them a call at 434-286-4500 to learn more about how they can help you brand your business. Uncapped is brought to you with support from McClintock Distilling, Maryland's first and only organic certified distillery. They are well known for their award-winning gin and are rapidly growing a name for themselves for their Matchstick Bourbon and Bootjack Rye Whiskey that have both won double gold at international spirits competitions. You can visit them in historic downtown Frederick along Carroll Creek for tours and tastings. Go to McClintockDistilling.com for more information. All right. The first question is, what is your favorite beer from Brewery Fire?
My favorite beer from Brewery Fire is the Phoenix IPA.
That's the wrong answer. The
What?
correct answer would be Crispy Boy.
Okay.
But I guess I'll accept that one too.
Those guys come up with the best names for beers. It's I love their.
Look, Crispy Boy was the hoppy lager that I did with them.
Oh yeah, I did have that.
Wasn't that a great beer?
It was a great beer. I actually had that in the last week or so.
Arguably the best beer they've ever made.
It was very delicious. Let me tell you, it went great with. I think I was having chocolate chip cookies with it. So,
and this anonymous listener submission. What is your favorite thing about Jesse Johnson?
That's an anonymous question.
The brewer at Brewery Fire.
Let's see. Well, outside of his ever-changing facial hair, Jesse's a good guy. I mean, I see him, multiple times per week. He, those guys, when they, when I came out here to Carroll County, there was only one other brewery in Carroll County, Johansson's Brew Pub. And what I really like about the craft brewing, community is that brewers, I mean, we are a community, and we all sort of, bond and, like to hang out together. And we really feel like there's this sense of just, everybody, we're all on the same team, and we help each other out, and we, share, tips, and we, just help each other when we can. And that's really great. So.
Yeah. So those are two completely anonymous listener submissions.
Did it say, submitted by J?
It may have just been a text message, and I think it was labeled Jesse Johnson. So it seems like over the years, Pub Dog has had, I mean, you've obviously had the consistent business model of you had a production brewery and then eventually 2 brew pubs, but you've kind of gone in and out of distributing, and then you did some contract brewing for a while too, correct?
Yes. Yeah, we've done contract. We've done a little bit of everything. So,
but is it accurate now? It's just the brewery tap room and the brew pubs to get your beer.
Correct. Yeah, we've gone back to come back around to the business model that we first set out 20 years ago. We're really a pub that makes its own beer, and we our thing is just direct customer interaction. And so about 2.5, 3 years ago, we added a tap room here at the brewery, and that started basically us back to what we enjoy doing. I mean, there are a lot of things I can tell you that I'm not good at, but what I really enjoy is being in a pub, talking with people, and just being in front of someone and talking to them about beer and events and what's going on, and that's our comfort zone.
Who's doing the brewing now? Are you brewing okay? Because that's also ebbed and flowed too through the years, correct?
Yep. Yeah. So I really love brewing. I mean, it's really why I got into brewing. It's something that I enjoy, and it still inspires me every day. I just love getting my hands dirty and being involved in the process, and it's just fulfilling for me. So I really love just getting in the brew house and doing everything. And, I for the last, year and a half, it's just been me in the brew house.
So I remember would probably have been like 2007, 2008 time frame there was a small selection of Pub Dog beer at Ye Old Spirit Shop in Frederick.
Mm-hmm.
But it was never the really good stuff. Like sometimes it would be, but then I would have to like go out to Columbia sometimes. So I would stop there and I would get the 'cause you had the blue flip top bottles
Right.
at that time, and I would get whatever specialty beer you had at that time.
Yeah. So good.
And because it was you guys were doing like a lot of, I mean, for that time, I would say experimental, like the crazy flavors added into blonde ales, and just you were doing some of the more experimental things in Maryland, I would say.
We've always sort of one thing at the Brew Pub Old Town Tavern that we always used to have was a fruit beer on tap, and that's something we carried over to Pub Dog. So we've always done, you know, fruit flavored beers, and we've sort of you know, it all expanded that over the years. They're, you know, they're popular and they're easy to drink and they're light and they're refreshing. So as we sort of learned that the distribution model was more difficult for us, it you know, that again brought us back to sort of what we're doing now. And it's, for us, it's a simpler business to be mostly draft, and we can do more variety and try new things when it's draft only. When you're talking about distribution, you've got packaging, labels, and all different types of you know, design and stuff you got to do. It's just not our strength. You know, I can come up with a lot of more recipes and focus on that a little bit more if I know it's just going to be draft and it's just going to be, you know, basically changing a beer menu, you know, changing a name.
You do growlers to go, and
Yes.
do you growler or just growlers?
Just growler. We have recently started canning some of our beer. Just
Okay.
a couple beers. We started doing 16-ounce cans, 4-packs to go. Since we added a kitchen out here at the tap room in about 4 months ago. So we do takeout pizza, and we found that we wanted to offer also takeout beer already prepackaged in 16-ounce cans, 4-packs.
My kids wanted to go to the Peeps show.
Yes.
A couple weekends ago when we went. Or no, it was during the week when we went. And you were very busy when we drove past.
Well,
there were a lot of people sitting outside on the deck, enjoying some beer.
So our beer garden is very popular, especially when the weather is nice, and we do get quite a few people that come out, especially you know, also too outdoors right now. You know, during COVID restrictions is the preferred you know, place to be.
So now though you stick mainly to classical styles and mainstay styles. Is that accurate? I mean, I've definitely seen that you do a hazy and some other stuff, but for the most part, you seem to gravitate more towards sticking with traditional styles.
Yeah, I'm pretty much an old school brewer. I love you know, lagers. I love, you know, traditional English ales and you know, American and styles. But we've done a lot of different styles when we were doing some contract brewing for Stillwater. I mean, we were doing stuff that, you know, I had never really brewed before, and working with Brian Strumke, he was, I basically, you know, to me, he's like the Frank Lloyd Wright of beer designing. He's just incredibly creative and passionate. So that expanded my knowledge base tremendously. So, you know, from beyond the just, you know, porter, ale, stout, lager. But, you know, that's, you know, what I learned was brewing classic styles when I first started brewing professionally. So it's more my comfort level is classic beer styles, but, you know, I certainly like to branch out and try some new things sometimes. And we've done a couple sours over the last few years, and we've done some hazy and juicy IPAs, and I'll brew anything. It's sometimes it's tough to predict what's good popular at the time and what's going to be the next trend, but I just sort of look at it from, I'm going to brew beers that I would enjoy drinking, or I think people would enjoy drinking. So that's sort of how we go about coming up with new beers.
So are you a fan of the hazy IPAs and heavily fruited sours and
sure
all the okay? I didn't know.
I like those beers. Our hazy IPA is our #1 seller, so it's it's something that I enjoy. I mean, I drink a pretty wide range of beers.
I think I had that. Where was that? I can't remember the restaurant now, and I should know. It's like one of the most popular ones in Carroll County, or at least in that area, where the Carroll County Craft Beer Week thing was.
Oh, okay.
What
Maggie's?
Yeah, I think I had your hazy there.
Okay. Yeah, we might have done a collab beer for the Carroll Beer Week.
Yeah, I think that's what it was.
Yeah.
But my memory's horrible, so I could be completely confusing different events and different times. Who knows?
No, I think that was, we did a collab with Johansson's and Brewery Fire for Carroll Beer Week a couple years ago.
Yes, that's right. Right.
Yes.
Now I can actually remember it once someone else gives me all the details. Yeah, I keep getting told I need to have Brian Strumke on. That Definitely. He's a interesting guy to talk to. I've never met him in person though. I've had a bunch of his beers, especially I love the ones that he did with Oliver, the whipped ones that were nitrogenated, so you had to shake them up. And
nice. Yeah, he's great. I mean, he's the most creative brewer I've worked with. He's amazing. He really is.
He may sometimes come up with ideas that maybe shouldn't have been made. Although they're ones I haven't tried, so maybe they were good. I don't know. They sound really out there.
Yeah, he's done some stuff. I mean, he came to me once and was like, I want to do a smoked sour beer. And I looked at him and I was like, are you serious? And he was like, yeah. And I'm like, okay, let's do it.
Let's figure it out.
Yeah, I mean, it came out great. I mean, he's got that ability, and it's, I'm jealous. It's he really can design just stuff that's just I would never even, consider that would be a possibility. So
yeah, like there were it was recently within the past year or two, there was the Chinese takeout inspired 4-pack.
Okay.
That did not sound good to me. But I mean, who knows? It may have been great.
Yeah. He's just a fountain of, of beer styles and just, stuff super eclectic. But, they taste great. I mean, he's able to pull together flavors that are just, mind-blowing sometimes.
What made you get out of doing contract brewing? Was it just too much of a hassle when you needed to just focus on supplying your own beer?
It was, we were getting to the point where we had pretty much maxed out the facility here. Mm-hmm. And we just said, we want to come back and just sort of regroup and focus on doing our own stuff. And it was just really one of those things that we were just getting challenged. And it got to the point where we were like, Stillwater had basically sort of outgrown, what we could produce for him. And we just thought that would be a good time to just sort of, hey, dial back a little bit and just kind of focus back on our own. What we're comfortable doing.
What size brew house do you have?
It's a 15-barrel brew house, so about 500 gallons.
Do you have 15 and 30 barrel fermenters, or are they
30? Yeah, we have mostly 30-barrel fermenters.
Okay.
Yep.
So actually, you have you kept referring to it as this little brewery, but as craft breweries go, that it's actually on the large end of brewing equipment.
It's probably maybe in the middle, but my first brew house professional was a 7-barrel brew house. So this is, roughly twice the size.
How much beer do you guys produce a year?
So in a typical year, we were right around 2,000 barrels.
Okay.
In a normal year. So
it's a lot of beer.
It's a lot of beer. Yeah.
Especially consumed all on site.
Yeah, mostly. I mean, it's between the 3 locations. Yeah, it's a good amount. So we still do a little bit of contract brewing, but very much smaller scale, and for mostly local breweries. So within the state.
Do you have your own canning?
No, we bring in Ironheart. Mobile canner, comes in for it, which is really nice. It's for us. It's great. They come in, hook up, can, and that's it.
Yeah, the only negative I ever heard about them was in the past year, because everyone needed to use them. It just became harder to schedule.
Right. So in the last year, most breweries went from, just say 50-50 draft to packaged cans or bottles to 95% package
or more
and 5% draft. So COVID posed some challenges, not only for just how you got to get your beer out there, but logistics for just getting enough cans, and then
there was that shortage happened, and then
cans became scarce, and getting materials delivered became a challenge. So, but
how were you able to operate the Federal Hill place? Because Baltimore was a little more clamped down than a lot of the other parts of the state, wasn't it?
Yeah, Baltimore was shut down for, I'm going to say, 5 to 6 months in 2020.
Were you doing it takeout or anything, or did you just have to close during that time?
Yeah, just closed. So, which was tough. So
yeah, I can imagine.
And we were doing takeout only here from the tap room. So for, I'd say, 3 months, first 3 months, but the response from the local community and beyond was just incredible. We had no idea when we closed. I think it was the day after St. Patrick's Day or the day before St. Patrick's Day. We had all this beer that we had brewed for St. Patrick's Day, and then we got the notice from the state, from the governor. We had closed, and then I think we could be open for takeout only. And the first week, we had a few people come in, fill growlers, and but I think the first week people didn't know what to do. I think everybody just stayed home.
Yeah.
And then the second week, more people came in, and the third week, more people came in. And by the fourth week, I came home on a Friday night, and my arms were so tired from filling growlers Friday that, I looked at my wife and I'm like, I don't think I filled more growlers. I think we filled more growlers today than we have in the last 6 months.
Yeah.
And the response was just incredible. People came out and supported us, and it was great. We had a promotion where we were doing, basically discounted growlers for first responders and healthcare workers during the shutdown, and we had tremendous response from that. And it was one of those situations where we just made the best of it, and we got through. And but just we wouldn't have had that unless the community was just so supportive of local businesses, including ours. So
I was just reading something today, like looking back, since we're so close now from the beginning, like the anniversaries of the beginning of different phases of it, and like that was one shining spot of like how communities got together to help lift up the businesses that could potentially have been completely decimated by having to be shut down.
Yeah, it was awesome. I was just really touched and blown away. By how much the community just came out and supported us and brought growlers. And we at one point we couldn't get growlers from our supplier, or they couldn't print growlers for us. They were, backed up, or they had parts of their plant was shut down. And so we were going to run out of empty growlers at one point, and we were able to, come up with hand stickering growlers with our logo and information on them.
Yeah.
I mean, it was great. So
yeah, there was a constant year of having to come up with, or I guess, pivoting. It was a constant year of pivoting for, I guess, any hospitality industry type business.
Yeah, it was a challenge, but you just had to kind of get creative and do what you could do. And again, that's where the local brewing community really, those are the times where you can reach out to somebody that locally and be like, hey, do you have any empty cans, or do you have any growlers, or you have this? I'll trade you for this. And that's where those kind of relationships are just they're great to have.
Yeah. Well, I know you have to get going soon. You had a hard out, so I want to thank you so much for your time today and sharing your story. And I guess you have 3 locations that you can give a rundown to people where they should go to find Pub Dog beers.
Sure. So yeah, Chris, this is great. I really enjoyed it. So so the Brewery tap room is in Westminster, Maryland. And 2 pub locations are Columbia, Maryland, and Baltimore City, Maryland.
And pubdog.com has all the information for what's on tap and all the menus. And so go check out there. And your Pub Dog, just Pub Dog everywhere on social media.
Yes.
You got in there early enough to get before someone else decided to just grab that.
Yes.
All right. So thank you again. And thank you everyone for watching and listening. Cheers.
Cheers.